Let's move on to the next category we have here is Best Overlooked Movie. Dave, what do you have?
Okay, so first nominee is Red Rooms, which we've mentioned a couple times because of the lead performance, which is a stunner of a performance. This is maybe the most disturbing movie I saw this year. This is definitely one that stuck with me. I almost don't want to give any details about it because I want people to watch it. And it is truly overlooked because, like, even on quote unquote film Twitter, even there's like a small group of people who are really excited about it. And everyone else is like, Red what? I don't know what that is. What are you talking about?
I know.
Great. Fancy Dance, which was mentioned by Brendan earlier, definitely overlooked. Yeah. Definitely a good movie. Handling the Undead. I don't know if you guys saw that one.
Oh, no, I didn't get a chance. It's with Renata Reinsva, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's another, and also the guy who starred with her, Anders Danielson Lee, also in this movie. They're both, it's like a weird reunion. It is not as fun as the last movie they were in.
And that one wasn't fun either.
I mean, it has fun moments.
It sounds like they took the worst person in the they took the worst person in the world and put them in the worst situation in the world.
Yeah, it's like a zombie movie that is a metaphor for grief. It's a lot. It is a very
it sounds like your movie, Katie.
Yeah, it's great. I loved it. I loved it. And then the next one is Lisa Frankenstein. Definitely overlooked.
Another blind spot.
A movie I really liked. It got really bad reviews. I had a great time watching this, and a lot of it is probably because it has odes to movies from my childhood. You know, it's very 80s centric, and it's lovely. I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend people watch it. Don't listen to all the negative reviews, just decide for yourself. I think you'll have a good time. And then Femme is my last nominee. It's a George McKay movie. Another great movie he had this year. He was in 2 wonderful movies. And the winner is Red Rooms. Red Rooms is like in my top 25 this year. Really incredible. It gives you some insight into, we had a really interesting review on the website from Jalen Sala about the voyeuristic tendency of this movie and how it kind of turns the camera on the voyeur. And I think that was a really wonderful point. And it is a very clinical movie. It does not really show a lot of detail because it's about a serial killer ostensibly. It does not show a lot of detail. It shows glimpses of it, just enough to kind of get your imagination going. And I think it's one of the most expertly directed movies of the year. It did not make my top 5, but it's pretty close to being there.
Yeah. Pascal Plant's direction there, I think, is quite great. Yeah. I almost could have considered it, not even almost. I probably should have considered it for best overlooked movie for me, but I may have more thoughts about it later on in this episode. So I guess slight spoiler alert. I didn't want to talk about something too much this early. So as far as my nominees for best overlooked movie of the year, I have Ghostlight, which you mentioned a few times already, Dave. I think that's a very good movie. I have Horizon, an American Saga, Chapter 1, which I actually think is kind of underrated. I actually quite enjoyed that film.
I dug that movie.
I love it. I found it charming. I old fashioned and charming. I really dug it. Janet Planet, which we mentioned a few times already. Sometimes I think about dying. A few times we've mentioned that as well.
I clearly need to watch that movie. That's so
good.
It's quite good. It's actually stuck with me. I've liked it more as time has gone on. I've only seen it the one time, and I liked it initially, but it's kind of grown on me as I sat with it for some time. It's definitely one of those growers, for sure. My last nominee is also my winner, We Live in Time, which is a funny one to pick because, Dave, you know how much we love to go at each other's throats about Brooklyn, and I know this movie's directed by John Crowley.
Sure is.
I actually
keeps winning.
I love We Live in Time. I actually think this is the one movie from this year, more so than any of these others, that I feel like I like a lot more than pretty much everyone else. This is going for something that I thought was really effective. The out of the non-linear structure of it, which I know a lot of people criticize, just made the whole experience feel kind of like a photo album come to life in many ways, which I really responded to. So there was a lot about this one that really worked for me. This is in my top 25 of the year as well. I do think it's that good.
Interesting.
I say whoever is his casting director is doing a wonderful job.
Oh,
you have Saoirse Ronan, or you have, Andrew Garfield. Like, this is a well cast movie. Like, and it's 2 watchable stars in it. It really helps, because some of it can get a little dour, given that it's about cancer. It can be a little tough, but like, I mean,
there's some levity here, which it really needed, and I think the actors do a great job delivering that.
Yeah, good stuff.
Just like she did in Lady Macbeth. Just like Lady Macbeth, right? Right, JD? Just
yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll go with that. I haven't seen that film in so long. I haven't seen it since.
I don't know what this says about me, but I've watched that movie like 5 times. I love it.
I mean,
why does that not surprise me? Why does that not surprise me?
I don't know. Yeah, that was such a
Brooklyn,
long time. That film
Lady
came out
Macbeth.
like a decade ago.
Yeah. Brooklyn and Lady Macbeth.
That episode where Judy and I reviewed Lady Macbeth was probably the only one where we disagreed on everything we had to say to each other, which has rarely ever happened.
Not a fan.
Yeah.
No, JD was not a fan. I liked it.
At least
and then
at the time.
No, but then we coupled that with Cars 3, which I think is the worst Pixar movie.
Yeah, we went.
I mean, that's not exactly the hottest of takes. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
No, I know it's not a hot take, but considering that, I mean, JD kind of liked it. I thought it was hot garbage. So, I mean, I guess that's the big difference there.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff there. All right. Best overlooked movie for me. I have some crossovers to what you guys had on your list as well. I also have Annie Baker's Janet Planet for best overlooked movie of the year. Rachel Lambert's Sometimes I Think About Dying. A film we mentioned with Cillian Murphy. Tim Millent's Small Things Like These is a nominee here for me. Bertrand Bonello's The Beast is the next nominee for me. That's another one of those incredible international films that was liked enough on film Twitter, at least pretentious film Twitter, which I consider myself to be a part of at times anyway, depending on the film that we're talking about. But it wasn't really talked about on the whole. And then the last nominee I have here is Benjamin Ree's The Remarkable Life of Eibelin, which I still think is one of the best documentaries of the year that nobody is talking about at all. But you talk about an experience that if I was in that position, I don't think that I would have survived it. The idea of getting to live your son's life all over again and learning something about them that you did not know existed before, I think is astounding. It's an astounding premise that the film fully realizes in some really great ways with its animation and recounting those events. Absolutely stunner of a documentary. Love it. My winner here, though, is Annie Baker's Janet Planet. I think this is a wonderful debut. As we noted earlier, it is quite understated. I do love a good stoic movie, and this is a film that internalizes everything that it's doing with these lengthy pauses. There's very little dialogue to convey emotion and themes, but I do think there's so much beauty in the stillness of that film as it tackles these ideas of loneliness and longing, this idea that people come and go without much rhyme or reason, something that feels confusing as a child and isolating as an adult, a duality that film tackles, I think, with incredible precision. I absolutely love how the film conveys that, especially with one scene near the end. There's this picnic scene that kind of taps into a magical realism that I think is absolutely phenomenal. Striking, absolutely striking movie. I love Janet Planet. Absolutely overlooked generally, but I think it's like, even of the people that have seen it and talked about it, like I would argue it's one of the best films of the year, and
it's good. Yeah,
it's just not being talked about in that way. So it is my winner here for best overlooked movie.
And I just want to say, in terms of overlooked movies, I hope people listen to this section and like start writing these down, because a lot of it, even if you're a film lover, it's not your fault that you overlook this. A lot of this is terrible studio behavior. There are movies that don't get released, especially, this is a pet peeve of mine, JD, now that I live in Kentucky. There are movies that just don't get released and you don't get to see in the theater. Like The Beast was here for 2 days. It played one time for 2 days. So if you, I don't know, have a job, then you can't see this movie. So all of these movies that we mentioned, I mean, both of your nominees, and obviously I think highly of all of my nominees, all of these are really good movies and really kind of stretch the form and are worth seeing. Like, so
I echo that.
Absolutely. Do the extra work, because the studios will not, because they're monsters. So it's up to us to put this out.
JD, when you and I were living in Kentucky together, we'd sometimes drive to Cincinnati together to go and see movies because we had to. You had to.
I mean, case in point, I just talked to JD about this today. Like, The Brutalist today, as we're recording, is opening up in limited screens. And if I want to see it, I have to drive 300 miles to Chicago to see it. God. And it's like, okay, like Cincinnati, okay, hour and 20, I can probably swing that. No, I'm not driving 6 hours round trip and then a 3-hour movie. That's a whole work day. I can't do that. 9 hours.
Yeah,
it's too much.
It's totally understandable.
You mean it's not coming to the Kentucky theater?
It is not, sadly. Yeah. I'm just happy that place is open. Forget about getting The Brutalist.
Yeah. I missed that. I mean, I remember really liking it.
Access is certainly an issue. It's quite the issue in certain states and parts of the country. There's no doubt about it. And
I would say most of the country.
And most of the country, for sure. And to your point as well, Dave, we have to act as the marketers for these films because there is no marketing budget for any of them. I know that I'm scouring film Twitter or Letterboxd or whatever it is, trying to mark down the films that I need to see in a given year. And often we're also, we're talking with each other about certain films as well. As we get near the end, a couple of times I'm begging or reaching out to Brendan through November and December. I'm like, what all do you have on your list? Maybe there's something that I've overlooked. And he's doing the same thing. We're just kind of cross-referencing each other because we are the ones that have to do the research on this because there's just no marketing for these films.
And at least Janet Planet, though, I think that's on Max, so that's readily available, which is nice. But I wish most of these movies we didn't have to go to such lengths, sometimes less than legal lengths, to find these movies.
But even so, so many of the algorithms don't prioritize movies like this for many people who have these streaming platforms, and they do have that easy access. They're not even going to know that it's there, which is where us as marketers.
And that's the thing. Like the 5 films that I noted anyway, Ibelin is on Netflix. And there's no fanfare with any Netflix film, or at least most of them. The rest of them you can rent on Amazon. But to your point, Brendan, how do people even know about these films? They don't even know look for them, which is part of the problem. So, we do our best to be the cheerleaders for these films, but
the studios are spending more money for people to market their other films that people are going to go see anyway. So it just completely defeats the purpose.
Which is kind of, it's a bit of a paradox.
I'm just glad I got through that without cursing, JD. I'm proud of myself.
I'm proud of you.
Good for you. Good for you, man. I'm proud of you too.
Because I wanted to.
Anyway, the last thing I'll note is that there are some other really, really great films that qualify for this category that I did leave off intentionally for reasons that will become clear down the road here. But those are my 5 nominees for Best Overlooked Movie.